So I'd like to say welcome to this NALP webinar looking at AI and its impact on the legal sector, and in particularly how it's going to impact paralegals. I'd just like to introduce the team. So my name is Chantal Cook. I'm one of the directors of NALP. Also with us is Amanda Hamilton, our former CEO and patron of NALP. Also, for some reason labelled Jane Robson, but I can assure you that it is Nigel, who looks after our marketing at NALP. He's here too. Nigel will kind of be in the background. If you've got any problems, feel free to direct message him on the chat. So we'll be using just the chat, not the Q&A or anything like that, just the chat section. So if you've got any problems, message Nigel on the chat, is what I'm trying to say. And also, if you've got any questions during the webinar today, don't let them kind of distract you in your head. Pop them into the chat and we will come to them a little bit later on. We'll be trying to answer all of the questions. So if you've got a question that's burning, just pop it in the chat and we will come to it in a little bit. And Nigel will be dealing with the questions as we go through. And plus, we also have, of course, our expert today, Robin Ghurbhurun, who I will introduce properly in just a few minutes. But first of all, a few housekeeping things. As I mentioned, videos on or off, your choice. Microphones off, please. The webinar is being recorded, just so that you're aware. We've got a number of other webinars coming up in the future, and I will run through those. But just so that you know immediately for your diaries while you're here, the next one is actually next Wednesday, and that's going to be looking at, if you're interested in a career in probate research, then this is the webinar for you. So we'll be talking about that next Wednesday, but I'll give you some more information about the webinars that we've got booked up right through until the summer, so you can get those into your diaries a little bit later on. Okay, I think it's time to start. So this webinar is all about providing insight on AI's current and future impact on the legal profession. Plus, we're going to have some advice on how paralegals can augment their own roles by working alongside AI. Our expert today is Robin Ghurbhurun. He's the Managing Director for Further Education and Skills at the UK's Digital Data and Technology Agency for Tertiary Education, Research and Innovation. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but it has a nice short name, JISC. So I'd like to welcome Robin along. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar, Robin. I know you wanted to give a little context before we get started, so let me pass over to you for a moment.
Thank you very much, Chantal, and thanks for the kind introduction. Delighted to be here and to lead this session on NALP's webinar on AR. I must confess, though, I will start by saying I'm not an AI expert, although my organisation, JISC, does provide leading insights and support for the effective and responsible use of AI across tertiary education, which is further and higher education, and our research institutes. Critically, I think it's important to just provide some clarity on AI itself. I think for any individual contemplating using AI, they must develop a solid understanding of data literacy as a foundational skill for AI. And AI should not be viewed as a standalone skill. It's just another tool. So it should be part of a broader set of competencies that include communication, collaboration, critical thinking, data literacy, digital literacy, and problem-solving skills. I'm sure all of those that many of our audience have here today. Gen AI, or generative AI, is a subset of artificial intelligence technologies, and it's capable of generating new content that at times resembles human-like outputs. These systems often leverage vast data sets to produce text, images, code, and more. And they exhibit an understanding or mimicry of human-like creativity and reasoning. Unlike traditional AI, that primarily focuses on interpreting or classifying existing information, Gen AI takes more of a proactive role in tackling tasks. It can generate new content based on learned patterns, summarize large documents, and interpret trends from unstructured data as the like. But AI does do that with limited guidance. So my thoughts today will be shaped by several sources, including Gartner, my own legal team at JISC, and Workflow GPT that recently published a future of Gen AI in legal work. So Chantal, back to you. Look forward to the questions.
Thank you. I guess, although you've kind of given us a context for AI, is there a definition that we should be aware of?
I think that it's anything that is produced from machine learning or that is computer-based generated information. So anything that is not human generated, I think, is the simplest way to look at artificial intelligence. It's not human intelligence; it very much is generated through computing.
Thank you. So how is AI already impacting the legal sector? In other words, where can we see it at work already? Who's using it? How are they using it? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, look, clearly it's a rapidly growing market, and there's a lot of newly emerging software. And you tend to get fight or flight when people come across anything that's new and emerging. But we also have well-established software providers that are looking to add value to their current offerings. So if you think of Adobe, an Adobe PDF summary, for example, what it does, it summarizes through its own AI assistant and allows you to engage with a document by asking it questions with instant answers linked to sources, primarily from within your own document. And can be used to craft emails, presentations, and more. It's also got a generative summary function that pulls out the key points. And then we have the likes of Co-Counsel Core, which is from Thomson Reuters. Now, this is a Gen AI legal assistant, and it was launched in the US last year, and it equips customers with kind of 8 Gen AI powered core legal skills. And that includes things like preparing for a deposition, drafting correspondence, searching a database, reviewing documents, summarizing a document, extracting contract data, and contract, policy compliance and timeline. Now, we've seen law firms such as Clifford Chance, they've announced pilots and trials in collaboration with major software companies. So, for example, with Microsoft and using Microsoft Viva and Copilot. And these mostly remain internal to law firms' work rather than involving client service delivery or indeed client information at present. There could be a danger of fatigue. There are so many software companies that are claiming they're about to revolutionize the legal sector. And the most common applications that we're seeing are around risk identification and prediction, administration, profiling, and text generation. Now, if I cite my own organization, our own legal team at GISC, they've recently implemented an AI solution that's been provided through a law firm, and it's developed in collaboration with a major AI platform. And they're using this to accelerate contract management reviews and also exploring applications in contract management. So we know the legal sector is already starting to explore and find opportunities to leverage it for efficiency, for accuracy, and for innovation. And if you look at research from McKinsey in 2022, it states that 50% of all organizations in surveys were reporting using some form of Gen AI. So legal teams and firms really need to think about ways in which they can align themselves with the technological upheaval that we're seeing happening across many industries. And at the end of 2022, it was reported that 3/4 of the largest solicitors firms are already using AI, nearly twice the number from only 3 years ago. 60% of large law firms are at least exploring the potential of new generative systems, and a third of small firms. So research firms are sketching a future where Gen AI not only augments the capabilities of legal professionals, but it introduces new paradigms for legal practice. And I think this begins with conversation AI and then extends to entirely new AI generated applications. And the potential transformation is vast. I think the rapid pace of evolution does require caution in any of these areas. It comes with a health check, especially when choosing foundational AI technologies to kick off your own organization's AI journey. And law firms that are poised to thrive in that Gen AI space, they kind of choose one of three pathways. Do you buy one off the shelf piece of software? Do you privately label your own GPT? Or do you build your own private GPT from scratch? And I think whatever path you choose, you need to consider the present as well as the future in terms of that desired outcome. Back to you, Chantal.
I guess I'm a little bit surprised it's being used so much already and it's so prevalent already. And that then has to so how's that going to change in 5 to 10 years? Because if we're already here and it's that prevalent, what's it going to be like in the next decade? And in particular, how's that going to impact jobs?
Indeed. Well, I'm not a futurologist either. It's a bit like, trying to determine the weather at the moment. I think it's fair to say if data is the new oil, then AI is the new electricity. In other words, it revolution in the same way that electricity revolutionized industries by providing a new energy source. So AI is definitely transforming how we approach, execute, and innovate in our work. So the capacity to automate up to 40% of the average workday, what are the implications for efficiency and productivity? They're quite profound. And certainly in sectors that are reliant on the processing and analysis of vast information volumes, such as the legal field. Now, I think the legal profession stands at that pivotal point or moment in time where Gen AI is poised to transform the landscape of the legal work fundamentally. So law firms and legal professionals are encouraged to embrace the shift, not fear it and not see it as something as in a distant future, but as an unfolding reality that demands engagement, exploration, and adaptation. And you have to think about taking a risk-based approach to anything that's innovative and thinking about what is the risk appetite within your own organization. And let's face it, the legal profession is almost centered on risk and risk appetite. So the greatest impact will be speeding up response times across the industry. So especially when summarizing large swathes of information, full adoption of dynamic contract management and automation capable of updating business intelligence and responding to those changing risk factors. I think if you look at the next 3 years, let's say something that let's go out to 2027, according to Gartner, I think by 2025, next year, 30% of enterprises will have implemented AI augmented strategies, which suggests a move towards a more sophisticated legal kind of analytics and predictive modeling, enhancing precision in case outcomes, predictions, and legal risk assessments. The year after, 2026, the integration of AI colleagues. I know from the education sector, we already have universities and indeed colleges having AI assistants, almost Alexa in the room, supporting them and working with the teachers and professors in terms of supporting the learners. So the idea that you're going to have AI assistants is not so far-fetched, and legal research, case preparation, and even mundane administrative tasks, such as enabling lawyers to focus on higher value activities. Further out to 2027, the emergence of applications that automatically generated by AI without any human involvement. That will revolutionize legal software development, make custom solutions more accessible, and probably more affordable for law firms of all sizes. Now, thinking about the paralegal profession, would be remiss of not, focusing in on the paralegals. I think their involvement should be more nuanced, and kind of nuanced business-led advice rather than collation and administration of data due to deployment of the AI tools. So a focus on quality control and the optimization and safeguarding of contractual arrangements. And there's also a great opportunity to upskill paralegals. So if you think about prompt writing, the opportunity now to support paralegals in the effective training and deployment of legal AI. So if you think about the legal sector being traditionally rooted in precedents and accurate documentation, and it's experiencing major change in that paradigm with integration of Gen AI. So crucially, prompt engineering, this is more than a trend, it's a fundamental shift, which you'll see reshaping the way in which legal professionals interact with technology to enhance their work. So in law, the stakes are high. A poorly constructed prompt could lead to misinterpretation or legal inaccuracy, whereas a well-designed prompt can provide accurate, reliable results that are critical to legal decision making. So consider, for example, an AI tool used for contract analysis. A well-designed prompt can help the tool to not only identify key clauses and terms, but also understand their implications in different legal contexts. The capability transforms the tasks such as contract review and due diligence, and even legal research, saving countless hours while improving accuracy. So for a paralegal, complexity and skills are required. Legal prompt engineering is multidisciplinary. It requires a deep understanding of both the law and AI. What a great opportunity for paralegals to be at that pivotal role in understanding both AI and the law. So mastering the field requires not only familiarity with legal terminology and concepts, but also understanding how AI models process and respond to language. And this dual expertise can be challenging, but is essential to the actual development of, effective legal AI tools. Worth noting, though, like with anything, when it comes to computing and processing, Gen AI can only produce new content by recycling what it's already been trained on. So garbage in, you'll get garbage out. And the quality of output is often determined by the quality of the input in the first place. Back to you, Chantal.
That's very interesting because when you were first talking, I was kind of thinking, well, all these sort of often more administrative tasks and things that paralegals within solicitors' offices in particular do, sounds like a lot of those might go. But actually, from what you're saying, yeah, they might, but in order for them to go, you need somebody who really understands what's going on in order to
Absolutely.
input that, which means you might lose a job here, but you're gaining a job there. And actually, that job could really only be done by somebody who has got the expertise of a paralegal.
Absolutely, and that's the whole point about augmenting the professional. You're not looking at displacement. You're looking at how do I augment my skill sets and how do I further develop myself as a professional in this field. And that's not just the legal profession; it's a number of sectors that we're seeing at the moment.
And based on that, then what advice would you have? Because I love the idea of understand AI and augment my skills. How?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, again, it's emerging, but in most systems, so when we think about most systems that already employ AI, the technology there acts as a support to improve the work of humans. So where firms are using such tech, there are signs that increasingly familiarity is not only helping them to use it effectively, so playing with it, trying it in a safe environment, but it's also overcoming those concerns that the use of AI, as you said, could some way replace the humans. And you forget about the number of jobs and different types of jobs that might be created across a number of professions. So most surveyed workers say that AI has improved both their performance and their working conditions. So if the paralegal is the human interface with the AI, then that's going to be essential for the foreseeable future, particularly in areas such as there's something called AI hallucination, and I'll give you an example. So identifying the AI hallucination in terms of the detail and responses and verifying those outputs that have been generated will be a critical human trait. So, for example, ChatGPT can be prone to hallucinations or inaccuracies. In one example, ChatGPT falsely accused an American law professor of sexual harassment and cited a non-existent Washington Post report in the process. Now, in February, a promotional video from Google, and Google's rival to ChatGPT, which was Bard, it's called Bard, B-A-R-D. It gave an inaccurate answer to a query about the James Webb Space Telescope, and it raised concerns that the search company had been too hasty in launching a riposte to the launch of ChatGPT. In other words, OpenAI's breakthrough. So chatbots are trained on a vast trove of data taken from the internet, although those sources are not available in many cases. What we've seen in the education sector where students have produced prose, and often the prose includes references and citations, and actually the fact that it was almost as if it still had the sticker label on it from someone else that had written it, and the student was claiming it as their own. So you can imagine what that means in the legal profession. So the fact that they're trained on all of this data, it operates like a predictive text tool. So how many times have you text someone and it's changed it to what it thinks it is what you want to say, how annoying it becomes, unless you turn off that predictive tool. So it builds a model to predict the likeliest word or sentence to come from the user's prompt. And this means factual errors are possible, but the human seeming response can sometimes convince users that the answer is correct. So paralegals, I think, could verify the identity of clients, catch fraudulent transactions. You get AI phishing scams, voiced phishing scams. Again, the human side of that is critical to doing that quality assurance. And also defining where the legal liability lies in the AI value chain. So you will have, a number of contributors, creators, and deployers, and if you don't have the human checking whether, for example, in the value chain that supported the final document, GDPR, intellectual property who's checking on all of that in terms of what the AI is generating? Because AI can't make those distinctions itself, but a paralegal can.
So it sounds like, which I'm very pleased to hear, there are plenty of opportunities out there for paralegals, despite the impact of AI, which obviously is going to change things completely. I guess another little thing that you just kind of vaguely touched on there is you shouldn't be using AI to do your qualifications, should you?
No, indeed. I think as with any sourcing and referencing and acquisition of information and knowledge, we all use sources, whether that's on the internet, whether that's Wikipedia, whether that's from a book, whether that's from a colleague. I think when using it, it's then how it's cited and how it's referenced, but more importantly, how it's applied to the context in hand. And I think, that's where in the legal profession, for example, paralegals look at how they can target AI rather than some of these novelty factors. We're all playing with it, me included, at various points. And then you hone in on actually where are the greatest benefits. And I think it could be really powerful from an education and an assessment perspective, but it has to be measured, it has to be balanced, and it has to be ethical as well, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We've got a little bit of time left, and I'd really love to hear your questions. So if you've got any questions, please do pop them in the chat, and Robin will hopefully be able to answer them. I know he'll certainly do his best. This is such an interesting area, and obviously, as Robin said, he doesn't have a crystal ball any more than any of us do. But it's definitely an area that it's worth understanding, worth getting your kind of head around as much as you can. And then because there are all these opportunities, and because if you're not, I guess it's like a lot of things, if you're not kind of getting your head around it and you're not at least trying to embrace it, then you could find yourself a bit left behind at the end of it. So definitely please put your questions in the chat and we will put those to Robin in just a second. I suppose the other thing to ask you, Robin, is do you, I mean, do you think that although AI is moving really, really fast, and you had your
Mm.
kind of 3 year little plan that you talked about, or not plan, but the kind of predictions for the next 3 years, which I think 3 years out seems reasonable. But do you think there's any way in which we can understand what it might be like in 10 years, or do you think we're going to see a massive slowdown and actually it won't be quite as radical as maybe it all feels like it will be?
No, I think it's fair to say that it certainly won't slow down. I think anyone that's familiar with Moore's law and technology and semiconductor technology and the pace of change of computing generally, because of the massive information that is currently available that can be ingested, and you see the investments that are being made in the storage, the cloud solutions, even in the machines that are required to process these vast amounts of data. It's being backed heavily by capital investment in terms of then producing the number of workflows that are required for a number of industries, whether that's automation on the shop floor and digital twins through to textual information. I think going back to your question about how paralegals can best prepare themselves for the future, I think that's the gift that those that have got an interest in the legal and paralegal profession can absolutely wrap around. And I think if I was a paralegal today, I'd be looking to understand how automation can benefit the firm I work for as part of an in-house team. Have an insight on the day-to-day processes that are required to keep things running effectively. Things like exploring opportunities for paralegal to be at the vanguard of AI experts. So understanding where AI adoption will bring the most benefit, and who have an understanding of the limitations and also those pitfalls, and sharing where it works and doesn't work and pointing to what does good look like, and best practice, although best practice yet to be determined. Each one person's best practice could be tested by another. And remembering that the impact of AI is going to be across all industries. We're not alone here. It's impacting. If you look at the World Economic Forum, I highly recommend looking at the World Economic Forum publications on future skills. They look at the demands of the skills that as citizens across the globe that are going to be needed. And some of those skills are the skills that inherently make us human. And thank God, I always use the example of the AI in the medical profession, where you look at the diagnosis and even perhaps the proposed solution or healthcare remedy won't replace for the foreseeable future the empathy and the bedside manner of a GP or a consultant when they're talking to the patient. What it may do is how to accelerate getting to the diagnosis. So those skills that make us more human are the skills that very much employers are looking for. And if I was in any industry, I'd say develop those human skills. And finally, don't think you can fill in the gaps that the AI isn't currently doing, because eventually what happens when the AI fills those gaps, if you focus in, oh, we'll just do the bits AI doesn't currently do, actually do the things that make us, cognitive, social constructs as human beings. I'll stop there.
Lovely. We've got some questions coming in, and please, we've got a few more minutes. So if you have any other questions, pop them in the chat. I think Nigel is handling the questions, so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, so we've got two questions from Tanya. First one is, what specific AI technology is being used in the sort of the paralegal world? So I think she's after a couple of things for a couple of recommendations for things to look at. And then also, what are the best practices for training paralegals to use AI effectively?
Yeah, interesting. So I mentioned one or two that like Clifford Chance are using with Microsoft, and obviously using Copilot, and some of the Adobe software. I think they are going to be at the core and the mainstream. And the software solutions are developing outside of those companies. They've got huge amounts of investment that they're making internally. Probably won't be made available externally unless it's made available through their supply chain. I think when you look at some of the solutions, there'll be legal automation tools. So they're kind of streamlining repetitive tasks such as document filing and case management. There's legal research platforms. These platforms will provide lawyers with relevant case laws, precedents, legal theories, I guess, around unprecedented speed. Large language models. I think what we're going to see is smaller language models, actually specialists. At the moment, GPT is a large language model, for example, but I think we'll start to see smaller bespoke language models based on demand from the consumer. And they will assist with things like drafting legal documents, contracts, and briefs. Predictive AI, so it'll look at historical data, and then those tools will look at the potential case outcome, and it will help legal teams to strategize formulation. And then there's contract review systems. There are many, and I'm not going to make a recommendation because I'm not a legal profession, but I think it's worth exploring with your legal peers as to who's using what, either through those kind of communities of practice. Hopefully I've given a sense of those main tools: automation tools, research platforms, language models, predictive AI, and those kind of contract review systems. Type any of those into Google or your preferred search engine, and I'm sure you'll come up with some software applications that are being created already.
Thank you. I think we've got a couple of questions coming, which I think maybe the first one you've kind of covered, but I'll mention it anyway. Are there any websites or resources you would recommend as an introduction to how to train AI and understand how it works under the hood?
Yeah, actually, there are some free resources which I always highly recommend. And the ones that have just recently, actually in the last week or so, that have been released. If you're new to the world of AI, there's about 8 to 10 resources. So Google offers AI courses, and they got 5 different courses, and you can learn about Gen AI. And it's an introduction to AI, and it leads to a kind of solid understanding. So do look at the Google AI courses. Microsoft have got an AI course that covers the basics and then more. And it starts off with an introduction and continues through learning. Now I can provide you post this meeting, and if it's all right with now, I'll provide links to all of these. You can just click on them and it'll take you straight to these resources. Prompt engineering that I mentioned with ChatGPT. It's a 6-module course, and that's actually created by the Vanderbilt University, and offers beginners a starting point to write better prompts. And it starts by learning effective prompting, and then complete the course knowing how to bend ChatGPT to your will, dare I say, using it in that way. There's also OpenAI that created ChatGPT. They've gone into collaboration with Deep Learning, which is Google Mind's offshoot, and they're offering a course that's taught, again, all free. It starts off with best practice and it finishes with a better understanding of prompt hands-on practice. So they are 2 or 3 ones. There's one called Big Data, Artificial Intelligence and Ethics, and that's University of California. These are coming from the States. Again, completely free. And it introduced you to IBM's Watson, which is kind of the initial nuclei, I guess, of chatbots. And again, it starts you off by learning about big data opportunities and knowing the end limitations with AI. So there are some wonderful courses out there that I'd highly recommend. So I'll drop the 8 to 10 or so links to those courses, and you can explore at your own will. And the beauty, as I said, they are free to help your own understanding.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And that kind of answers the next question, which was about, do you think cost is going to be kind of a strict entry? But actually, if there's so much free training out there, I think that the answer is no, it won't do that. We are actually running out of time. I'm really sorry. But thank you so much for all your advice and information that you've shared with us about AI. It's a massive area, and I'm absolutely sure we'll be doing this webinar again, maybe in a year's time, and it'll be completely different then. But there'll be lots more to learn. I know we've got a couple more questions, and I'm sorry that we just don't have time for those, but there will be a recording of the webinar available on the website for NALP members, and then later on that becomes available to non-members as well. But that will be on the website in the next sort of week, well, within a week, certainly. So you can always listen to it again and hopefully fill in anything else that you maybe just didn't hear the first time round. Thank you so much, Robin, and also for your offer to send over those links. I think they would be fantastic for us to share. So I think I very much appreciate that. So thank you so much for giving us your time. Just very quickly, I know we are running out of time, but just a quick announcement of the events coming up. Next week, we've got Danny Curran, who's the CEO of Finders International. He'll be answering questions about having a career in probate research. On Wednesday, the 5th of June, we'll be talking with Hilary Briggs about how to overcome overwhelm. So sometimes you feel a bit overwhelmed by how much you have to do. Hilary has a way to get past that and get everything done that you do need to get done. And also on the 11th of July, that's a Thursday, we will be speaking to Barbary about how to convert your paralegal experience and qualifications if you fancy becoming a solicitor. So those are the webinars that we've got lined up already. You can find all of those on our website, nationalparalegals.co.uk/events, or navigate through it through the About tab as well. That will also get you there. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you very much to Robin Ghurbhurun from JISC for sharing his information about AI. And we wish you all a lovely afternoon, and we'll hopefully see you next week.